Oh gosh. Okay. So obviously I'm way past my first 100. So it's funny. I did a LinkedIn post this week and I talked about we have less than 90 days left in 2023. That's it. I think we're down to 88 if I recall. So that's not a lot of time. So right now at ClientSuccess, what I'll tell you, I have 3 huge areas of focus, things that I'm redefining, rebuilding, doubling down on as I move into 2024. So the first one is onboarding. This year, we did a great job of enhancing and taking it to what I would say onboarding 2.0. We built a very, very comprehensive program that is more accelerated than it's ever been, helping our customers through different channels and mechanisms, guide them to their wins, their outcomes, the things that they are most focused on. But we can do better. We can accelerate this more. I can help guide them more prescriptively. So my big area of focus is staffing resources, people, technology, content, all around onboarding to really double down on that for 2024. I want to use that as a core differentiator for who we are in the space, because what I've found about our customers is that most of them, if they are not implemented and set up and configured right in that first couple weeks, months, they never really get to a place where they're going to maximize the value. And we've done re-onboardings, we've done audits with them, and like even with our best attempts, once you're out of those initial couple weeks and months, you never get the time, you never get the momentum, you never get the buy-in that you will. So it's been really tough. So onboarding is number 1. Number 2, technical resources. So our product is not super technical. It's actually the beauty of ClientSuccess. It's simple, it's powerful, it's powerfully simple. It's easy to use. You don't need a technical admin, you don't need resources against it. But there are technical nuances to our solution. Because we integrate with CRMs and other data sources, you have to make sure that the data is set up, integrated, and configured correctly. Because if you don't and can't trust the data that's in your platform, you're never going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
You just won't trust it. And so there's no value. It's garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
So I really want to put a lot of focus around technical resourcing to help ensure that our customers feel 100% confident every day they can trust the data that's in their solution and use it in the biggest conversations, which is usually with their board and their executive peers. So I'm doubling down on resources to help our customers get that locked and loaded. And last thing, education. Now, for us, we're in the customer success space, customer experience space. It is more than just educating our customers on how to use our product. We have to teach them best practices about the industry. We have to educate. We have to enable. We have to be the driving force that's going to help them drive their businesses forward. What I have found a lot about who our customers are in our ICP, we've got a lot of first-time customer experience or customer success leaders. We've got folks who haven't done this a ton of times, folks that are still learning. They're taking on new challenges, right? The types of organizations are, putting them in positions to solve things they hadn't solved before. So we want to educate and enable. We want to connect them with other folks who are doing things similarly. So our last big strategy is all around education and creating the content through different channels, mechanisms, and different types of content that's going to help elevate and educate them.
Well, what I look at is after that first 100 days, I think it's 3-prong approach. So I think the first is based off of that 100 days, we had a lot of great information. And what strategy and roadmap did we decide to build for the next 12 to 18 months? And that's really the leadership and the thought mindset of the team internally. Let's build out a roadmap and let's start saying, hey, we're going to do these things. Let's not overcommit ourselves. The reality is in 12 to 18 months, you can only do 6 or 7 initiatives at the most, right? Some companies are like, let's do 20. I'm like, okay, let's boil the ocean. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So like find those 3 to 5 to 6 of the internal. That's the first thing I do. The second thing I would do is I would start to do some serious benchmarking in whatever industry you're in. So you can really understand not only on the product side, which is common, but also on the experience side. Like, how does your experience match up with your top competitors, with the folks that you're trying to win business from, right? Win the hearts and the minds, right? So that second piece is like, and it's not just a one-time exercise. So benchmarking is like a quarterly or every 6 months exercise where you stay afoot with the latest and greatest of what's happening in your particular industry on product and experience. So I think that's the second thing. I think the third thing and the most important thing from my perspective is people do business with people, right? And so I think that you really have to grow your leaders. Like I always see my job, they say, what's your number one focus in the job. I said my job is to build the next generation of leaders. We may be selling widgets. We may be doing video games. We may be doing Microsoft Office, whatever it is. It doesn't matter the product. It's like, if you're building a company for longevity, you're building leadership. And so I think that's the third thing to really think about.
Yeah,
the biggest challenge I see in the industry right now is aligning CX goals and KPIs with those of the organization. What we're seeing right now across the board is a lot of reorganization and cost cutting that's impacting CX operations. It's getting a seat at the table in the C-suite. And I know we talk about this a lot, getting people to collaborate across departments and helping to achieve CX goals. But to me, the number one priority, and it continues to be, is demonstrating the ROI of CX. Mm-hmm. The more we can get leadership buy-in at the corporate level around CX goals and creating an understanding of how the outcomes of CX goals are linked to business goals and can be linked to financial objectives, the more sound and secure CX strategy is going to be. I mean, I love, we could talk all day about journey maps, how they help us to understand pain points and how we can focus and fix those. But if you're not able to illustrate the dollar value of that to senior leadership, then I think you're at risk of being eliminated or marginalized when things go bad. So, it's having a CXO in the C-suite, but also, working across aisles, getting buy-in, getting collaboration, creating an effective governance structure that has the buy-in of the leadership from each one of those areas, so that it's not even a thought. We've been seeing, if you think about the service profit chain article, it came out in HBR in 1995, I believe. Mm-hmm. People have been trying to figure that out now for years, what that looks like. And I think it's helping everyone to understand what that means in practical terms, what employee engagement means. It's a multifaceted model. It's about people being fulfilled in their roles and developing in their roles and feeling as though their personal values align with those of the company. It's reflective in higher level of productivity and extra role behaviors that result in customer outcomes that bring money into the company. And I think it's creating that understanding and creating accountability at the managerial level. And it's kind of I know I've gotten a little off track with the strategy.
It's all right, keep going, I love it.
Yeah, too many times employee engagement has been, that's an HR thing. Isn't that something we measure every year and we never do anything about? It's not. Employee engagement is a leadership responsibility. It's an outcome of effective leadership at the mid-management and upper management level. And managers should be held accountable, understanding that it's outcomes of engagement, employee engagement, that lead to positive customer outcomes that lead to profitability.
Yep. So writ large, the strategy is to develop a connected, personalized, low friction experience for our customers, and that's a long-term journey for any organization, especially a large legacy company like Cisco. So practically what that means is how we're executing is still working to bring in different parts of the Cisco organization, different business units, into the broader CX approach that we have, as opposed to doing their own things. Sometimes when we acquire a company, we let them run, and they might handle CX a different way. They might have their data in a different location. We need to, so we're still working to bring some of those companies into the broader fold, because from our customers' perspective, our customers tend to have multiple Cisco products. Not uncommon for them to have 10, 12 different products across business units. It's security, it's collaboration, it's networking. So we need to make sure that we've got everybody, rowing in the same direction when it comes to providing that experience. So that's one particularly practical element that is part of our strategy, and how we execute upon that. The second part that's critical to us also is making it easier to do business with us. I mean, literally making it easier to pay us money. So moving into more frictionless renewals, for example, moving into headless commerce as an example, ways that we can make it easy for customers to understand, to find what they're looking to purchase, or to understand if they've got a renewal coming up, if they've already purchased something, and to very quickly understand the value that they've gotten from that purchase or will get from that, and how to then move through the buying process or the renewal buying process.
So most of your renewals, when this happens, is it automatic, or do you need approval annually? Because that can be a tough dance to have. You got to get a hold of them, make sure they see it and sign it, because it's not a priority if it's just flowing correctly.
But most of us are, most of those renewals contracts are annually recurring.
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. And in fact, we did research for years talking to customers and learned that the number one reason why our renewal rates were low, this is going back maybe a decade ago, and everybody was running around, right? Is our pricing off? Is the packaging off? Are we not promoting it properly? And number one reason was customers said, I didn't even know I had a renewal.
Yeah.
And so again, large customers in particular might have thousands of individual renewal contracts. They're not all co-termed. So things would just slip through the cracks. So
absolutely.
We actually started a program to help us reach out to customers with our partners, because Cisco is a partner-led business. I think 90% plus of our revenue comes through partners. So we had to figure out, how do we jointly communicate with customers with our partners? And then first thing we went out the door with, the first use case was simply renewals. And that was a huge effort. And to be able to do that in an orchestrated, automated way, because we're dealing with millions of customers in over 100 countries, multiple languages. So we had to build automation into that process so that we could reach all of these customers.
Yeah, so for this year, and as you've highlighted, I'm fairly new to this particular role in this particular company. I have mostly focused on scale, a bit of growth, right? There's internal processes that I'm looking to mature, internal connectivity into other departments, and a bit of automation, and kind of, I guess you could probably call it laying a real data foundation. And to my previous answer, right, like, because of my connectivity into all these other departments, if I don't have clear data about the customer demands, the capacity that's being placed on the or the demand that's being placed on the organization, it can hinder my ability to drive change in the organization. So right now I'm looking at really laying a data foundation. Think of it as support ticketing systems and analysis and dashboards and reports. In 2024, we'll be looking at just continued operation performance. So my company is part service, part software. We have a service component that's part of every single deployment. And so as we scale and we layer on a lot more customers, that's going to require that we get really analytical and intentional about how we scale that performance. So
that makes a lot of sense.
2024.
So I mean, after that first 100 days, you really start to decide what's missing in terms of the basic CX strategy, and what are we going to need that's really going to deliver value. A lot of times, again, we allow our personal preference and passion or ideation to drive it, and that's really a disservice to the business. You have to ask yourself, what's going to deliver value to the business tomorrow? And I try to simplify CX, because I think in the CX profession today, with the proliferation of influencers and all of the digital solutions and the next way to measure customer satisfaction, we overcomplicate it. And I think we really scare a lot of people away from just doing something. And so it comes down quite simply to, you need to listen, and then you need to act. And so that strategy that you need to develop needs to ensure you're doing those, as basic as it may be. If the most you're going to do is get NPS, if you've at least got customers answering the one question, providing you some measure of voice of customer, that's a start, and that's good. Move in that direction. So you've got to begin to outline that near-term and long-term vision for where you can go. But it's got to be prioritized by how you're going to deliver value in the near term, or you will lose all credibility with the business, with the C-suite, with the stakeholders. You've got to really be able to align it with the current strategy and the needs of the business and the needs of the customers today and tomorrow.
So we've always been, and I certainly have always been a big fan of goal setting. And when I say goal setting, doing the best that you can is not a goal. You have to quantify it. You have to say, this, what is the best we can do? Well, this is a quantifier that we put on that. Being able to reverse engineer to that goal. So for instance, let's say that your goal is to sell, $10 million this year of a service. And I'm just throwing that number out there. And your average order is $100,000, and you figure that probably won't change much. Well, you got to figure out a way to get 100 clients. Well, in order to get 100 clients, you got to talk to 400 people, because your closing ratio is 25%. And to talk to 400 people, you have to try and reach out to, 5,000 people. What does that break down to? Well, there's 52 days in the year. I'll give you two weeks vacation. 5,000 divided by 50 is 100 a week. Divided by 5 is 20 a day. So you have to break down goals into conceivable chunks. $10 million is way too big a number for most people. But 20 contacts a day, that's doable for people. Now, the end result's the same, but it's the perspective, right? So we have to make it where it's achievable, where the person is not overwhelmed. And by doing so, that's how you achieve your goals, is being able to break down those numbers the way I just did.
I love it.
Yeah, so, the thing that I know is true in customer experience, I think it's true in almost every industry, but with customer experience, it's a balancing act of balancing service level or speed of answer, fast, quality, and expense. You've heard the adage, you can have it cheap, fast, or good, pick two. And again, that's really kind of a matter of understanding what your organization is, what your customers are looking for, and really trying to build that. And then putting KPIs, key performance indicators, in that allow you to track those things and understand what you're looking for. After that first 100 days, it's a matter of really what gets measured is what gets done. So making sure that you've got the right measurements in there that are in our industry really real time. You want those to be real time, every minute, every second, somebody understanding how things are doing, and then obviously rolling up to more of an executive level, and then inspecting what you expect. So once expectations are set, once goals are set, once reporting is there, making sure you're really looking and making sure that you're getting the performance that your organization expects.
It very much depends on where my clients are and where they want to be. I have clients where I'm very happy to work on a tactical basis and solve an existing problem, like the project I just mentioned, because they as a business aren't yet ready to dive into a full customer centricity. But then I have other clients who absolutely want to nail their North Star, have a culture that thinks customer. I do tend to encourage people, though, to balance business, customer, and employee. So I would say, where does my strategy focus? That's client-led. I'd be the worst customer experience consultant in the world if it was anything other than client-led. But I always say, focus on getting that balance right.
Absolutely. The employees can have a big impact on your customer's experience, right? Happy employees are going to provide a better experience. I think doing a lot of EX and CX at the same time is always a great idea. With that, yeah, continue.
Oh, I was going to say, absolutely, Ben. And I would say it goes a little bit further than just EX into employee engagement and listening to employees and how they feel the customers are thinking. And what they feel customers need. I mean, nobody can know the ins and outs of every business. It's employees who tell us what's working and not working.
I think we're well past our first 3 months. I think I spent close to 3 years with Cority now. I think we matured our success organization a lot in the last 3 years. When I think of the early days and I see the difference to what this organization is today, we've done a lot, but we have a lot more to focus on. So my focus right now is in making sure I deeply understand our customers' needs and how they change. We track a lot of trends, so we need to understand not just how our customers think or feel in this particular moment in time, but how is that changing from what it was 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 12 months ago. I'm crazy about understanding customer behavior and trends, which is a little bit less traditional. So it goes outside of Net Promoter Score or CSATs and just measuring everything in the life of your customer on a moment basis. And it goes into making sure they stay with us for many, many years. And we understand how that relationship evolves. There's highs, there's lows, and being with them, truly partnering with our customers along their journey is very important to me. So right now, I'm trying to understand how those trends evolve. When is the best time for me to get alerted when something is happening? I usually often say, you put together early warning systems. You need to understand when an account shifts from happy and green to maybe yellow and not so stable towards red. I often think the early alert system is usually way too late. The changes have happened way in the past, and you are not paying attention to what your customers were telling you. So I've got the entire organization rallied around the voice of the customer and making sure we deeply listen to what they tell us before they tell you we're terminating a contract or we're deeply unhappy with something. Catching them early and being proactive in fixing them is very important to me.
Yes. So from all the research out there and from the different jobs that I've had leading teams, I've come up with a model that I call heart and science. So the heart part is really the feelings part of the experiences and how you really bring the heart to the business. And then the science part is where you can think of all the data components to actually not guess, but really get into the data and the metrics and then blend them both to actually design a customer experience, validate that you're meeting customer needs, and it's an iterative process.
Tell me more about this iterative process. Right now, what are you focusing on? What's your strategy now, and how does it apply this framework?
Well, in my speaking and when I'm workshopping and doing work with brands, we're really getting into looking at where are the gaps. What have they designed versus what the customer actually wants? What are the gaps? And then going to fix them. And through, again, certain parts of the heart and science framework, it's not every single piece of it that needs to be cared for. It's diving in to those components. If the gap is customer service, long wait times, agent attrition problems, we'll dive into that segment. If the issue is e-commerce, people are adding to cart, but they're not checking out and it's the sale abandons, we'll dig into that part. So it depends where in the journey that I come in with my toolbox.
Yeah, it's really around kind of building that programmatic aspect and or the roadmap to how you're going to drive the work going forward. Oftentimes I see organizations saying we're going to start with basically building a voice of customer program, which is absolutely critical. But I think looking at it holistically and building the entire programmatic aspect and socializing with the organization and be able to define successes. So I look at it in 3 areas as I have built roadmaps for different organizations. And of course, you need to match it with the culture of your organization. But it's really, I'm around 3 areas. One is alignment around the experience. So the first pillar, if you will, is all around understanding your current state and where you want to be in your future state as defined by your CX strategy. So that really has to do with how are we doing today? What are those metrics? What is our headline CX metric we want to use? Do we want to use NPS? Do we want to use another metric that is really important in our organization? So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is all around listening and acting on feedback, all kinds of feedback, customer feedback, stakeholder feedback. And so that's your listening program. And that is really the area of which feeds back to that first pillar around how you know how you're doing in the future, in the current state, to improve the future state. And then the third area is, I call it acculturation, but it's all the components around how are you going to drive that cultural change in your organization. So it's everything from defining a customer experience way that you're going to bring in team members, the way that you're going to reward and recognize and train, et cetera. So those three areas become the basis for how I have worked to continue to operate a CX program and share results in those particular three areas.
So, like I said earlier, I'm focusing with early stage and larger companies, but the focus really in this market is retention of existing customers and where possible growth. The market has not been kind to salespeople trying to get new logos, given how much budgets are being, made smaller and they're tightening the belts. So I thought it was a great time to start pitching and pushing on the fact that customer success represents or contributes about 65% of revenue to the company.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you really want to focus it on there. Let's dive into that. How do you get them to increase that revenue? What recommendations do you make to these companies to increase their customer success?
So I think the most important point with customer success is being able to know what your customer values. How are they assessing what you bring to the table as a company, as software? And if you understand that and are constantly delivering on that and having conversations where you understand what may not be working, whether it's about your product or not, and being able to come up and resolve those situations for them with an ROI of some sort, then it's easier to get them to sign or possibly consider growing, acquiring more product or another service that you offer.
Yeah, so working for a startup, this acquisition happened 5 months after I started Pathmatics, and we got acquired by a company of 120 people, about $30 million in revenue. So now, we've merged as one. I took over as VP of customer success. They had someone in place, but someone with not as much experience as myself. And again, it was identifying that they really had no true CS team in my mind. They had an account management team that essentially, after training and onboarding with a customer that first 90 days, they were responsible for upselling and retaining customers. But there was no true framework in place. So, no one, a kickoff call was just getting on a phone with a customer. And not actually having a formal deck which outlined goals and objectives. There were no business reviews enforced. So even with this new company we were just acquired by, they weren't really doing business reviews. So identifying what those business reviews should entail, and then how often we should have them, and when do we have that renewal discussion. We had value stories. So one of my biggest things is I've always worked, the past 3 companies have been data solutions companies. So it's all about data insights. Most people, when the economy, when budgets get cut and companies are going through hardships, we're one of the first solutions to go. We're not a lights on kind of solution. So my whole thing is, how do we continue to drive value for our customer? And just showing them how to use our solution and get information from it is not going to ensure that renewal. So it's helping them understand value success stories, macro goals that a company has, and how do we tie into those? So our data informs their decision-making process, and how do we take that data and help them with those decision-making process. What decisions did they make? What were those outcomes? What return on investment did they, achieve? Did they save time? Did they save, were there more efficiencies? Were they able to reduce the number of employees they would normally have to hire to identify that same data? So there's multiple aspects to what I define as value for our customer, and then being able to highlight that when we are having those renewal discussions. So I refer to these as success stories. I would say that is one of the biggest things that I brought to this acquisition and has been enforced and, is beneficial to every department at the company, because then marketing can leverage it for new business, right? And we can then, we can use it for case studies. There's multiple benefits to these value stories.
Yeah.
Sure. So we're kind of in an interesting place right now. As I mentioned, I spent the first few years really like building out and scaling the team. Tyler actually has, as a business, acquired a number of companies over the years and turned them into different divisions. And the company's overall strategy moving forward is actually to start to bring everyone together as more of a one Tyler type experience. And so I kind of have two things that I'm doing in the CS world. One is for our division's customers, I'm leading the integration strategy to bring those customers closer to the rest of the Tyler product suite and customer experience. On the other side, however, we're also thinking as an entire company working across different divisions to how do we create one cohesive experience for the customer. So when someone is interacting with Tyler, they are interacting with all of Tyler from a more holistic sense, rather than coming into Tyler and only interacting with one division or one product line. So really my strategy is focused on those two areas right now, and a little bit of trying to tackle both at once.
Yeah, that's it's kind of in an interesting spot right now. I mean, we're a 15-year-old company. We've got amazing group of people that are super passionate about trying to drive success with our customers. I think for our 90-day right now, it's trying to get a new product out the door. We're trying to define our moments that matter. We're trying to make sure that they're aligned to our marketing and messaging. And then we're really trying to make sure that we can standardize that process. So, I mean, I'm kind of going back to square one, because I would say when I started 2 years ago to come in to kind of try and put some best practice in place, it was a bit of an uphill battle. So there was a lot of we want to be best in class, but that's not our true like importance at the moment. So I'm going back with the team to go, look, we have to get these basic things right, and they don't. And things don't have to be perfect. They just need to be good to start. Mm-hmm. And I'd rather have a whole bunch of good stuff going on than, well, we got to get that perfect and wait, another 12 months to get something out the door. Yeah. So we're really just breaking down the customer journey. So we started with that. We started with looking at our moments that matter. We got the 4 that we're focused on. I've got my marketing team working on all the new messaging and positioning. And then we actually just had a call today where we're building out a new, when we look at kind of e-commerce and the transition that's happening within the space, and really being able to message that, there's two sides of, going back to like running a business, right? I think everyone in the world runs their business on kind of 3 core principles: acquisition of new customers, retention of customers, and managing your costs. So we're trying to build a really simple way for us as a team to message this to our customers and prospects, that we have our process. We bring you in from the beginning. We understand what your objectives are. We're putting our success plans together, and then we move you through your funnel to get to profitability. So we're trying to document that, operationalize it, and then repeat it. And so that's really what I'm trying to focus on, is start 2024 with our new product, our new process, and really build a scalable, repeatable, and predictable company.
I mean, I think that's a great goals to have, and the fact that you have it on paper and you're focusing on it now is phenomenal. You talked about something, these moments that matter. That's really fascinating, and I find it quite interesting. So I want to talk more about that. You said there were 4 of them. So in your business or just in general, what are these 4 moments you think that matter?
Greg, you call me out on it. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I would say I got, let's say 10 years ago, I got really into journey mapping, and I'm like, whiteboard, and I, have a room dedicated. Everyone's got different color pens and stickies, and you see that on like huge companies that get the opportunity to do that. And man, I would love to be able to have that time and energy, but what I've kind of found is, man, most time when I come in either to do a process or get a team turnaround, is you don't have that luxury, and you maybe only have 2 color pens and 1 sticky pad that you got to kind of work with. So what I found is, like, I've kind of nailed things down to kind of, I don't know, 4 or 5 moments that matter. And so I tend to look at, and I try to always come in a mindset of get myself out of a silo and look at it horizontally. Because if you can tie the customer success and experience from first touch to invoice, you can figure out through that journey path, one, you need to figure out what's the, I guess, the fear and the greed, in the sense of what's the fear of losing revenue, and not greed maybe, but what's the opportunity for profit. If you can denote those 2 things, you can speak to your C-level, you can speak to your process team, and you can build things and hang things off of those moments. So for me, I've tried to make the journey mapping process as simple as possible. So I look at the, what's happening in sales and marketing, and it's really just the messaging, the playbooks, the handovers. What are people doing to make sure that the customer's being heard, that you're not trying to oversell, you're listening, you're capturing, you're passing that knowledge throughout the steps. That piece I tend to kind of have as one moment, just because if we're setting the wrong expectation, your team, you can't overpromise and then just think your CX team's going to make it work, because that's just never, it's never in line. Like, I'm okay with a little overselling, but not to the point where we can't be successful by renewal, right? The next one for me is the handover from sales to CS, like queuing up and making sure. And one little point point of moment that I think is also important is between the time you do whatever the step is. Let's say it's the growth workshop, or that discovery call, or the sales, and you move into your commercials, is making sure that you have that intro to your CSM, because the last thing you want is, as you've got your buying team, they're excited, people are, let's go with your company, and then there's it's a week or 2, or it can be 30 days of back and forth redlining. People tend to get cold feet. Get your CS people introduced to the buying team to talk about, we got you. Here's the, the path we're going to get you to time to value. Here's how we're going to get you to successful. Here's how we're going to train you. Here's how we're going to make you feel like we're on your partner team. So that to me, that little piece there. And then the handover is the third one, the time to value, and making sure that onboarding is, if you only focus on one moment, honestly, that's probably the most important, because if you can get people successful using your product or your service, get them to that time to value as quickly as possible. One, as you look at your cost of acquisition and your time to profitability, if you can shorten your onboarding, their time to success, great, they're happy. You can then work on the renewal. But I think what a lot of people don't do is look at your costs on your sales process. If you can shorten your onboarding time, let's say it's 90 days, and you can bring it down to even 50, like that, then on the backside of most people in most SaaS companies, if you have a year 1 cost of acquisition or time to profitability period, awesome. Most people don't make money till year 2 or 3. If you can shorten that at any point, it just gets you to, profitability for that account quicker. So I think that's probably, and then the last one is just your engagement and that renewal process. You should start, like I said, you should start engaging and renewing in the activities, and telling the story is so important. And I think a lot of teams don't do this well, and they don't spend the time training their CSMs. Tell the value story. You own that communication. And it starts with the onboarding. I'm going to be your CSM. I'm going to be hitting you every week with what we're doing, the value. I'm going to send you automated reports, but I'm going to get on that QBR and I'm going to tell you why we're the best partner and why you should be, we should be just growing together forever. That piece and making sure that that's done. And then the renewal becomes a formality. I mean, there's things that are outside of control, but again, that's the most important. Anyway, those are the 4 things that I focus on, and then you build out from there. But if you can get those 4 nailed, and your conversion rates go up, your time to profitability happens, you're tracking the right metrics, then you can start hanging really good process off each of those and trainings, and then your OKRs, and everything kind of, I don't know. I try to make it as simple as possible for my team because everyone's busy. We don't have time to do, super complex, as much as like I said, I'd love to have the time where I could dedicate a room to doing a full journey, program, but it's really not sometimes feasible.